I think he's just damn near bloodthirsty, bro. Evil Folks is an evil little diabolical little bastard.
Alright, you kids get to bed, I get the story, bro.
The Return of Evil Folks. Bill Feezzy's GD Bro Raises Hell on Halloween Night. Part 1. The Prelude to a Death. Georgia prison inmate Eric Johnson, better known by his nickname, Evil Folks, a small but deadly figure within the ranks of the Gangster Disciples Street organization, was a man whose violent tendencies had long spiraled beyond any semblance of control. His current cellmate, a quiet, wiry white boy who mostly kept to himself, had recently become the target of Evil Folks' growing paranoia. One day, after letting him use his illegal cell phone, Evil noticed a zesty text message that his bunkmate sent someone, saying he couldn't wait for the person to play with his nipples. Evil Folks suspected it was a man he was texting this to until he became convinced his bunkmate was gay, a suspicion he interpreted as an insult, a slight against his own twisted sense of prison loyalty and gang brotherhood. One night, his anger reached its boiling point. In a brutal, frenzied attack, Evil Folks unleashed his wrath on the defenseless man, leaving a horror scene that even hardened guards and his own gangster brothers struggled to stomach. He mutilated the man's chest by cutting off his nipples with a pair of fingernail clippers. In doing this, he crossed an unspoken line. His gang, the same brothers who had once feared and respected him, knew they couldn't ignore the recklessness that was now a threat to them all. In the dead of night, with an air of grim finality, two of the GDs dealt their own form of justice, poking him over 76 times with their candy bars. Part 2. Meet Thomas, the mortician, Thomas's dark obsession. Thomas, 36, is a loner. An overweight, greasy-haired man with thick glasses, he found solace in a job that kept him far from the living and close to his true fascination, death. The prison's morgue had become his private sanctuary, a place where he was free to experiment on the cold, lifeless bodies that came his way. As he spent his nights studying decayed skin and silent flesh, he also dabbled in a secret passion project, a chemical concoction he believed would reverse death. After 5 years of trial and error, he finally thought he perfected the formula. As he went into work that evening, his fingers twitched with excitement. Tonight he'll test it. Thomas was an oddity, even by mortuary standards. Greasy smears of mayonnaise clung to his shirt collar as he worked, his thick glasses fogging every few minutes as he pored over the final notes on his precious concoction. He chuckled to himself in the stillness of the morgue, his heart hammering with giddy anticipation. For years he had been perfecting this formula, a blend of chemicals and illegal narcotics he believed could coax life back into cold, unfeeling flesh. Tonight was the night. He looked down at the syringe in his gloved hand, his lips curling upward. Tonight, the dead will walk. Part 3. Thomas's Slip-Up. It just so happened to be October 31st, Halloween night. Thomas's excitement got the best of him as he prepped the body of a slender 57-year-old white inmate who had recently died from a stroke. But in his eagerness, he slipped on a glob of ketchup and mayo from an earlier meal of a Burger King Whopper he'd dropped on the slimy floor and still picked up and gobbled down despite having 3 more sandwiches in the big brown bag. He lost his grip on the syringe he was holding and it flew from his hand, finding a different target than planned. The body of Eric Evil Folks Johnson, a terrifying ex-Gangster Disciples leader who was sprawled out dead and naked next to the white corpse. The serum worked faster than he could have imagined, and as Thomas struggled to his feet, a low, guttural sound filled the air, and the porky mortician's heart skipped a beat. The corpse's chest began to rise and fall, eyes glinting with a terrifying awareness. Thomas scrambled to stand, but it was too late. Evil Folks had returned, and his murderous instincts were sharper than ever. Part 4. The bloodbath begins. Evil Folks seeks revenge. As Thomas finally got back to his fat feet, evil folks looked around and grabbed a mallet laying on a nearby tool table and swung it so hard that it crushed Thomas's skull like a ripe watermelon on a chopping block, causing the dying man's guts to release a huge load of unprocessed poop from all of the Burger King he'd eaten that evening. The stench of smelly shit filled the air of the dark room as Thomas crumpled to the floor, lifeless. After killing Thomas, evil folks slipped into a nearby inmate uniform he saw hanging on a nearby coat rack. It was a little too baggy, but he didn't care. Now it was time to hunt down his betrayers, the 2 GD members who filled him with almost 80 candy bar holes in his body. He moved through the prison, killing guards and other staff members who were working the third shift hour. He had a hatchet in one hand and the mallet in the other, and terrorized with primal violence until he was back in the dorm where his life ended. After butchering the on-shift officer by chopping her head into several slices with the hatchet, he noticed that the 2 GDs he was looking for weren't in the dorm anymore, so he opened his friend, C. Bill's door to talk to him. Bill Feezzyy, a former ally, couldn't believe his eyes but wasn't stupid enough to say anything out of the way, so he revealed that the 2 traitors were in the hole or solitary confinement down in G Building. Without a word, evil folks headed for the hole, leaving more bodies in his wake. Part 5, Hell in the Hole. With 14 bodies left in his wake, evil folks' carnage caught the attention of more prison staff who sounded the alarm. Chaos erupted as inmates seized the opportunity to riot, due to evil folks popping several cell doors to release them, turning the prison into a blood-soaked battleground. The few guards on duty struggled to regain control, and evil folks, now a primal force of vengeance, cut down anyone in his path, leading other inmates in a violent revolt. When the zombie-like gangster disciple made his way to G Building, he popped the cell doors open after butchering the officer who sprayed him with pepper spray, and looked around as inmates started waking up and slowly walking out of their cells warily. When he spotted the 2 GDs who had killed him, he made a beeline for them, catching the first one, the big bro and former GD leader, and hit him in the head so hard with the mallet that one of his eyeballs popped out of its socket, hanging down his face by little red veins like tentacles. He then pulled down the gangster's boxers and used the hatchet to chop off his limp penis. He then found the other killer hiding behind the dorm's showers and grabbed him by the neck so hard that his mouth immediately widened, evil folks shoving the other G's dead dick so far down his throat that he immediately vomited all over evil folks' arm. The zombie took the hatchet and swung it at his neck, decapitating him with one blow, spotting his head and kicking it across the dorm's floor like a soccer player. Part 6, The Final Stand. Several SWAT teams arrived at the prison along with local police departments from neighboring counties and got into formation to neutralize all threats. In the night's final hours, evil folks faced off against law enforcement, wielding supernatural resilience. Evil folks waited, his chest rising and falling with an unnatural rhythm, his body bearing countless wounds that should have stopped any mortal man, but he wasn't mortal anymore. With a terrifying roar, he charged, a relentless juggernaut that tore through barricades and men alike, each step drenching Halloween night in horror. Bullets seemed to only slow him down, not stop him, and the SWAT team was forced to resort to desperate measures to contain the resurrected killer. Part 7, Aftermath. The prison was silent by sunrise, save for the murmur of cops and prison guards retelling the nightmare that had unfolded within its walls. Evil folks was thought to have been blown to shreds when SWAT hit him point blank with an RPG, but afterward his body hadn't been found yet. Rumors spread like wildfire. They speak of the monster that haunted the prison, an undead demon with a thirst for vengeance. Days later, Thomas's journal was found, revealing his resurrection formula. A chilling realization settled over the guards and administrators. The horror they'd endured might only be the beginning. The legend of evil folks was alive, and those who dared read Thomas's notes knew he could return again.